In this video, we'll talk about the October Visa Bulletin and specifically the rapid movement of EB3 categories for certain countries and why and how you should downgrade your petition from an EB2 to EB3 to take advantage of this rapid movement so you'll be able to get your green card. So what are you waiting for? I'll see you on the other side. In this video, we'll talk about why and if you should downgrade your petition from an EB3 to EB2. As you know, I've done a video updating you about the October Visa Bulletin. It came pretty late in September and everybody were anticipating it. So if you want to watch the video, we have a link to that video in the description of this video. So in that video, we talked about the Visa Bulletin of October and some of the predictions. But here in this video, I want to specifically talk about what is the impact of the fact that there was not really a lot of movement in the final action date chart. As you know, there are two charts, but there was a pretty good movement in dates of filing, specifically for EB3, which really impacts mostly immigrants from India. And so in this video, we'll kind of talk about what happened and what will be some advantages to downgrade from EB2 for those of you that are currently pending in EB2 to EB3 and see how that's going to work. So let's dive right in. All right, so let's talk about downgrading from an EB2 to the EB3 preference. And can you downgrade and why you should downgrade? So let's talk about it. So as I mentioned in previous videos, I made the video about the October Visa Bulletin, and it came pretty late this year. In this year, there was really almost no movement whatsoever in the final action date, but definitely a significant movement in the dates for filing, and specifically for certain countries. We're going to talk about it later on in the video, like for example India. And for people that have priority dates after specifically May 15, 2011, but before January 1st, 2015, there's been a lot of talk online and many videos. Some of these candidates may be eligible to what is called a downgrade. Downgrade their petitions from EB2 to EB3, and so we'll talk about exactly what it means in a second. So if we look at the Visa Bulletin for October, specifically in the third preference, we look at the third category. Most countries are current, which means that they can file for their adjustment of status and continue with their process. People that were waiting for a long time. Countries like Mexico, right now, current as well. Philippines are current, but India in particular had a big movement in the dates for filing. Currently, it's January 15th. And if you look at EB2 India, they're still behind at 2011. So that's kind of why it's interesting for some people to downgrade, because it's faster to move in the EB3 category as opposed to the EB2 category. And that's why we are talking, that's what I mean by the downgrade, because EB3 is going so fast, specifically for India. So let's talk about how it works. So for you to be able to downgrade your petition, so we have to look at a few things. First of all, we're looking at you need to have an approved I-140, which is the immigrant petition, in your EB2 category, right? So that's the first thing that we need. And then we need to have a priority date, right, that is current in the EB3 category, just like I showed, we looked at the Visa Bulletin a few minutes ago. The EB3 has to be current. Then we have to look at what is the situation of this particular employee. So typically, the same employer that filed for your EB2, right, that same employer that filed for your EB2, they can use that same labor certification, the one that you had approved to be able to get that EB2. And if you're using that same labor certification, right? That same employer files a new I-140 for that employee, this time with the EB3 designation, right? So that's kind of the trick. So you have an I-140 that's been approved in EB2, then we check that the priority date is current in EB3, you're still working for the same employer, and that employer is now going to file a new I-140 petition, this time designating EB3 category instead of EB2. But what is interesting here is that now that we have this new I-140, and this I-140 is going to be approved, if you file this I-140, you can file a 45 as well with this new I-140. That's the whole point, because what the 45 is going to do, it's going to allow you to adjust your status. So that's the whole point. The point is that because EB3 is current, and you're using this new I-140, you're going to be able to file this I-140 with a new 45. The only thing is that you can't, there's been a lot of talk about new premium processing fees and all that, and expansion. In this case, you won't be able to do premium processing, because if you remember, when you file for an I-140, originally, they want you to have an actual labor certification, the original one. But remember that your original labor certification is filed it's already filed with UCIS with your first case, with your EB2. Now that you want to downgrade to EB3, all you're going to do is submit a copy of it and let them know that you want to do the downgrade, but you won't be able to do premium processing because they won't take it. So that's one thing to remember. And that's essentially, in a nutshell, how a downgrade process is going to work. Let's talk about a few other things. So what's actually going to happen so now that you downgraded, what's going to happen to your EB2 approval? Well, that EB2 approval is going to stay valid. It's all good. And you can just use it later in the future if needed. Also, remember that the first I-140 from your EB2 and the second I-140, they also remain out there. So both I-140 will be approved, and it's okay. You're going to have two I-140s with the same priority date. It's all right. And then what you're going to do is, depending on which one moves faster, so right now it's EB3, but then there may be a possibility that EB2 will go faster. You can choose the one you want to go with. Now, if EB2 moves faster, right, that can be a possibility, then you're going to need to file another adjustment of status, because remember, you already filed one for the EB3. You're going to need to have another adjustment of status, I-45, to use with your new EB2 I-140 in case that one moves faster. So it's something to think about if that happens. But the key is that both I-140s are valid and you're going to be using them. The thing that you have to remember, and people are always asking if they should do it. Remember, you got an approved I-140 for the EB2. Now that you're going to downgrade, immigration is going to do a whole new assessment, right? And maybe, and just maybe, they may deny this I-140 because they don't have to take into consideration what happened. So just something to think about. But that's the process of downgrading from EB2 to EB3. Hopefully this was helpful. If this information was beneficial for you guys, let me know. And subscribe and give us a like, because we're here for you. So if you like this kind of videos, I'll do more of those, and I look forward to seeing you in our next video. Thanks.